Myles Garrett, speaking for the first time since the trade deadline earlier this week. And, of course, we had plenty of discussions over the last 2 weeks about potential Godfather offers for Myles. There was the report out of Philly, or by Charles Robinson on 102.5 The Game in Tennessee, that Philly would be offering potentially 3 first-rounders for Myles. And we had a lot of conversations around that. Well, this is the first time we've heard Myles since then. He was asked a plethora. So we've condensed about 2.5 minutes of his answers on the deadline with the questions. Here they go.
Did you have any conversation with Kevin or Andrew with the trade deadline approaching about, what direction they were looking in going into the deadline?
What direction? And my question stays the same. It's beginning of the year, end of the year. Are we still focused on winning? We're still trying to win. We're all still in line. So how we can figure that out, I'm all on board.
But you did have a conversation with them about that?
Yeah. I mean, it was that. And, they agreed. We still are in agreement on that. And, we got to go out there and get a win against the Jets at their place.
I know you have a no trade clause and all that kind of stuff, but did you know for sure that absolutely nothing was going to come about by the trade deadline?
I wasn't concerned with anything involving a trade with me or anybody else on this team. I was just focused on getting right, feeling better, getting my head in a better space after the week before, and trying to find a way to continue bringing it every week.
There's a rumor, though, I'm sorry, just to follow up on that really quickly. There was a rumor that the Eagles were willing to give up 3 first-round picks for you. And I saw Howie Roseman talking, and he didn't really throw water on that. So, if that was true, what does that say that a team would be willing to give up 3 first-round picks?
Again, that got nothing to do with me. What Howie and the Eagles choose to talk about and to talk to Andrew about. That is no concern until they bring me into the room. And until then, I'm focused on this team. But I haven't heard any of those talks. I don't read into any of those talks. And, I have a team to help lead and help try to find a way to win every week and focus on the Jets.
Were you happy that Andrew didn't trade a bunch of guys from the locker room? He left the team as is and pretty much giving you guys an opportunity to turn this around together?
Yeah, I mean, he does that, then I think we all kind of look around and say we're kind of letting it go. We're falling into a rebuild instead of focus on this year and trying to find a way out of this hole that we dug ourselves. So he still believes that we can win. He's shown that we're sticking with these guys in this locker room and continue to be invested. So we're happy to still be together, and we got to make the most out of it.
All right, again, that was Myles Garrett earlier today. And if you've listened to Myles for the last, since 2017 for his press conferences, he gave you a lot there. There was a lot there. We'll start with, and I actually thought Daryl had a great follow-up, which basically, Myles' thesis on all of this is, he started by saying, are we still focused on winning? That's the conversations I've had with the Browns, because that's why I want to be here. And Daryl did a great job at the end there of asking, basically, did them not, trading anybody but the Tryon Shoyinka trade, would that have signaled to you if they had traded more guys that, winning is not the priority? And Myles was very honest. Myles was like, yeah, we would have looked around and understood what was going on, and that was signaling a rebuild, which makes you wonder, did the Browns not trade anybody else at the deadline because they're still trying to keep Myles as satiated as possible?
It could be a part of it. Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I think it's interesting that they have these ongoing conversations, and we've known this for a while with Myles, but he checks in with them, and he wants to make sure that everyone's on the same plan, and I don't think you're ever going to be able to keep Myles happy forever. So eventually you're just going to run into the same situation you've always run into with Myles.
Unless you win.
Yeah.
If you just win, if you're just competitive.
Where on the timeline is winning going to come from?
If you were to get, it's easy. If you got Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore and they immediately walk in and are a good starting quarterback, even if you go 7-10, I think Myles can look at that and go, well, we almost doubled our wins, whatever the win total is this year, and we got a young quarterback who we know we can win with.
Okay, I meant before for like this year is what what I was talking about. Like, so the conversation's not going to go away. But by the time we have another Myles wants to be traded to the Eagles conversation, you won't be able to answer that. Is the point?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's it. It feels like we just pivoted the questions about trading Myles right now. And again, very logical reasons why you wouldn't, including the cap hit and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it feels like we did kick them. I don't want to say they passed the buck, but I think Andrew Berry probably knows there might be at least somewhat of a significant chance he's not here, and don't want to be the guy that traded for Deshaun Watson and traded Myles Garrett. Well, this might be the new GM's problem. That would be one way of reading. Like, yeah, sure, I could get the next GM, Wyatt Teller and David Njoku. I could get him picks for those guys. I could also get him picks for Myles Garrett, or I can see if I still have a job next year, and then we'll talk about that in March.
Yeah, and in the meanwhile, it does actually strive towards the idea that the best thing for not only keeping this job, but maybe a new potential job down the horizon, is you try to win as many games as you possibly can. Yeah. Like, there are some winnable games on this schedule, and if they end up going, I don't know, there's no number that's going to get them to be respectable, but if they end up with 6 or 7 wins at the end of the season with this roster the way that it's portrayed, maybe it looks better than what it initially looked as.
Do you think Myles is holding out hope that if they have to turn the page on Dillon in season, because I think there are Browns fans hoping maybe
that Shedeur just does it
2 games from now, and Shedeur sparks, and Shedeur's your Brock Purdy, and you take off and you win some games people didn't expect. I wonder if he's hoping for that.
I mean, we're all kind of hoping for that, aren't we?
I mean, I'm just hoping for wins. I don't care who's the quarterback.
But no, I mean, just in general, like I think we're all just hoping for wins, right? And so if that's the way that because I don't think we're getting many with Dylan Gabriel on the horizon. So if that means Shedeur, if that means somebody they pull from the clouds, yeah. I now always think about Deshaun Watson. Would you be happy if Deshaun Watson gives you wins? Because you said it doesn't matter what the quarterback is. I think it does matter.
If Deshaun went like 3-4 in 7, I think I'd still be pissed.
I think you would be, and that's why I want to make sure we understood
but any other quarterback on the planet can win games here. Brett Ratliff can come out of retirement, right? Eric Mangini's favorite developmental quarterback prospect. We could unretire Grandpa Whedon. He could win 1 game. I'd be like, we won 1 for the Gipper.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Deshaun, yeah, I'll be pissed. 216-474-0092. So to me, what's most interesting about this is he had 2 chances to strike down any desire to not be here.
Yeah.
He was asked, did you know 100% you were going to be here? And he said, I wasn't concerned about it. I wasn't thinking about it at all, which is not the only player. We heard Wyatt Teller say pretty much the same thing on the preview show earlier this week. I'm inclined to believe them because until somebody brings you something, in Myles' case with the no movement clause, until somebody comes to you and says, here's the trade, would you like to go there? What can you do? It's control the controllables. But he was then directly asked, and I think this one was another Mary Kay Cabot question. She had 2 great questions in there as well, but basically asking about the Eagles report. And he was like, yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with me until they bring me into the room.
Yeah.
Which, again, he could have just said, yeah, I heard that report. I wasn't going to Philly. Like, I'm not, and by the way, I'm not saying he should have. I'm just saying, because whatever he says is whatever he says. I'm not going to bash Myles for a non-denial that he had at least 2 or 3 chances in there to go, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm content because we're trying to win, and that's where my focus is. And instead, it was, I wasn't concerned. I wasn't on my mind. Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to it.
Does that seem like the right play if you're Myles? If I was in Myles' situation, I feel like I would do something very similar.
Yeah, no, because you don't want to commit to something. That's fair.
I don't want to commit to something.
But I think it's more you and I hear it that way. I think it's important that Browns fans hear the non-denials because it doesn't mean Myles is trying to go anywhere. But it also means like he's told you what the expectations are.
He didn't do
if
this
Njoku turns into elongated rebuild, I think he's going to go back to that whole trade request thing.
Again, he didn't do the Njoku. He didn't do the I'm not going anywhere, and please, I'm very happy to be
Same
here.
With
and
Wyatt
don't even
Teller, I want to finish my career
here.
He
didn't do that, but I've never expected that from Myles, and that's because I wouldn't believe it if Myles had said that anyway.
Yeah.
I'm convinced we're going to be doing the same song and dance come February that we did last February. I think it's going to be, it feels almost inevitable that we're going to be doing Myles Garrett trade conversations once again. I hope, beyond hope, that there's something that happens the rest of the season that changes that perception or gets him into a spot where he's just cool being here. But we've just seen this for too long for me to think that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I think there are 2 things at stake here. One, if you win down the stretch, and by win down the stretch, we're talking it's 9 games. If you go 4-5, that is winning down the stretch compared to what you did the first 8 games. That only lands you with 6 games or 6 wins, but you're playing 500 ball in the second half. I think Myles can take that, especially if Shedeur Dillon is the guy to pull the sword from the stone, as we're going in the right direction. And now we have 2 picks to kind of supplement the rest of the roster, right? So now if that doesn't happen, the other thing that I think could massively change this is, and this is the downside for people who want Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski out, I would be very surprised if a new GM didn't walk in, look at this roster, look at the future, look at the lack of quarterback, look at the lack of weapons on offense, and go, yeah, we're rebuilding, and Myles is going to hear that R word and be like, cool, you can trade me now.
Yeah. I mean, it's on the table.
I think that's the most likely thing. I don't think a GM's going to come in unless it's part of the thing, unless Jimmy goes to the new GM and says, or head coach and saying, I'm not hiring you unless you keep Myles Garrett happy, which would be a wild play. I don't think any non-quarterback should get that kind of sway in the NFL. I think that's the third option that might.
Well, most GMs that'll come in here will have a lot of respect for Myles, obviously, but they're not going to have the same attachment that a lot of the fans will.
And
they'll look at
the fear that Andrew Berry does of his legacy being trading for Deshaun and trading.
And there's going to be
Myles.
the simple answer will be the timelines don't add up. They'll go to exactly what Alpert told us what would happen this last trade deadline, essentially, and the timelines don't add up. You're going to be 32, 33 years old by the time we want to be competitive. We got to get as much as we possibly can for you. Now, that is a hell of a way to start off being a new GM. Like, you have to be a solidified, awesome, previously GM in order to come in and do that, though.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think you can just be like a first-year GM and like if you're James Gladstone, 34-year-old in Jacksonville, imagine him showing up. Yeah, imagine him showing up, 34 years old, youngest GM in the NFL at that point, showing up and trading Myles Garrett right away. I think you'd have questions, Nick.
No, I think it would just take a set of brass ones. I think that's all. Because here's the thing: you and I know that. You and I talk a lot about how the NFL thinks, and that is, from year to year, there are things that change. This is more important. This is more important. Maybe it's more football now. Maybe analytics is taking the lead. All those, or maybe like the analytical bend is taking more of a lead. Whatever. Like traditional football guys versus analytics. The tried and true thing is, I think most guys coming to a new job will say, "Hey, if I get the quarterback right, we're going to win. So what? That's all that matters." I think there is that. I think the philosophy in the NFL is anyone not named Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, maybe Justin Herbert, maybe Drake May right now. There's like 7 truly untradeable players in the NFL, and everybody else, it's just to stick the landing on winning.
Yeah, but you're crazy until you're not, and I think if it's an unproven GM that comes in and does that, I think it'll be looked at in a very different way than if it's a proven GM that it gets this job, makes that move. If it's a proven GM, I think the response would be, oh, somebody finally sacked up. Somebody finally was able to do something that Andrew Berry wasn't able to do. The perception is different.